Here are 2 pages from your lecture tutorial workbook about magma source depth. In other words, at what depth does magma occur and then rise to the surface? I'll tell you right now what this is all about. It's about a common misconception that students have that volcanic material comes from the core. So let's take a look. The learning objectives are to estimate the depth of the source of magma in a cross-section of Earth, and to sketch a cross-section of Earth showing the inner core, outer core, mantle, and crust. So this is a bit of review from things we learned early on in the semester. Below is a table showing you each layer, the depth to the top of the layer, the depth to the bottom, and then its phase, whether it's solid or liquid, and its composition. That same part of the page is on the left now, and on the right we have the lower part of the page. First question is sketch and label the 4 layers of the Earth. And the inner core has been done for you. The top of the outer core is at 2,900 kilometers, so your circle should be something like that. The top of the mantle is at 30 kilometers, so that line is practically on the crust line, because on this particular scale, it's such a tiny, tiny distance down. Now you'll notice question 2 said, did you draw the crust 30 or 300 kilometers thick? So you might have thought about this as a 300. So you might have accidentally put 300, which would have been about halfway between this 500 kilometer tick mark and the surface. But really it should be just about on the same line as the crust. What's the best comparison for the relative thickness of the crust on Earth? The skin of an apple is a much better comparison than the peel of an orange. I've taken that page and moved it to the left, and now we have the rest of the questions. And the beginning tells you a little bit about the outer core and the fact that it's liquid because of the temperature and pressure conditions. It also tells you about the conditions in which the mantle melts, which is about 15 to 100 kilometers below the surface because the temperature and the pressures are just right. Number 4 asks you to put a star on the diagram at the depth of the source of the magma. And so you should put it something like that between 15 and 100 kilometers below the surface. So what 2 layers form this melt? Well, this star is overlapping the crust and the upper mantle. So that is the source of magma that forms volcanoes on Earth. According to your diagram, estimate how far the molten metal would have to come from the core to reach the surface. And so that's this distance here that I have highlighted, and that's about 2,900 kilometers. So that would be quite a distance for the magma to come up. Another problem with the core being the source of magma is its composition. So what's the composition of the outer core? It's metal. What's the composition of erupted lava from volcanoes? It's not metal, it's rock. So 2 students are debating whether the molten outer core erupts as volcanoes. Student 1 says they don't think that the molten outer core erupts because the magma would have to travel thousands of kilometers through the mantle. Student 2 says if the core erupted as volcanoes, then we would have pure metal erupting out of Earth's surface. And volcanoes erupt molten rock, so that doesn't seem likely. Now, the correct student here is student 2. Student 1 has a good point. But remember, we believe that mantle plumes may come all the way from the base of the mantle, which is essentially the top of the core. So the mantle plume material does travel a great distance, but it is mantle material or rock that comes to the surface, not the material just below it, which is the metal of the outer core. You're a science advisor to a movie, and they want you to help them understand why a mad scientist that threatens to detonate a bomb in Earth's outer core would not make sense. By now I think you realize that the outer core is very, very far from the Earth's surface. So if there was a bomb that exploded in the outer core and the damage reached 20 kilometers in distance from that bomb, it would have absolutely no effect on the surface. So the core is not the source of magma on Earth's surface. Even though it's liquid, it is not the same liquid that comes out of volcanoes.